with us today. So, Mr. Moore's class, you guys are going to be the main people to be having a talk with Toni and learning all about some really cool things that are happening in New Zealand. So go ahead. Yes.
And as Ellie mentioned, I've come in a bit last minute, so this might not be the most polished presentations, but I find that's often the best ones that are a bit more like a conversation. And yeah, you guessed absolutely right. I'm from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Kia ora, everybody. This is a real pleasure to be here to talk to you all about New Zealand and why I'm here. So I'm actually here from a little place. Let's see, I feel like a weather girl on the news. This is fantastic. I've got this green screen thing. Palmerston North, I should just move down, is around about here in New Zealand, central of the North Island. So has anybody ever been to New Zealand?
No.
Oh, this makes my job even more special then. So New Zealand is found in the South Pacific. So we're down round about by Australia, but about oh, here we go.
There we go. I'm just going to pull you this way so you're not stuck in the corner.
Yeah, we're in the South Pacific and we're a nation of about 5 million people. So we've got, even though Montana is quite significantly bigger than New Zealand in land, we've got a lot more people, but we're still quite a sparsely populated country for our size. Some fun facts about New Zealand: even though we've got 5 million people, we've got a lot more sheep. So farming is big in New Zealand. Can you guess, for every person in New Zealand, how many sheep there are?
All right, let's hear some guesses.
So if there are 5 million people, so for one person, how many sheep?
100.
Have a guess.
100.
50 million?
Oh, not quite. For every person, there are 9 sheep in New Zealand.
Oh wow!
5 billion times by 9. So that's a lot of sheep. But
out of curiosity, does anybody raise sheep?
Nope. No.
oh, you do,
Mr. Moore, how many sheep do you have?
I got one.
So our sheep to person ratio in Montana is a little lower, I think.
A little lower, yeah.
Cows.
Cows, though, I believe in Montana we have 6 to 1. Oh, it's 6 to 1 cows.
I didn't look up our cow
person.
ratio, so I'm afraid I can't compare. That's going to be my homework later, is to compare the Montana-New Zealand cow ratio. But yeah, for now, so this is New Zealand, and the sister city for Missoula is Palmerston North, and that relationship's been going since 1982. So this is a 37-year-old relationship, older than me. And Palmerston North is here. So this whole region here is the Manawatu-Wanganui region here in blue, and Palmerston North is the largest city in that region. Down the bottom of the North Island here, you have Wellington, and Wellington is our capital city, so kind of like Helena is here in Montana. Our largest city, though, is not our capital city, I mean, much like Montana, is Auckland, and that's based up the top here, and that's a city of over 1 million people. So that's kind of almost the whole population of Montana just in one city up here. Christchurch as well is the 3rd largest city in New Zealand, and that's the city that you might have heard was impacted by the earthquakes several years ago. So, you know, a lot of things in common between Montana and New Zealand. I've already mentioned the agricultural links. There's a lot of people who work in the rural sector. But as well, I find culturally we're quite similar, and so Montana feels like a second home to me. It's also a very beautiful state here, and much like New Zealand, I had the pleasure and privilege of going to Glacier National Park on the weekend, just last weekend, and that reminded me a lot of the South Island of New Zealand, the beautiful Alps that we have running down the South Island, and lakes. I also went to Yellowstone National Park recently, and there I saw a lot of geothermal activity, mud pools and geysers and the like, and we have a lot of similar activity up here in around a city called Rotorua. So before I tell much more about New Zealand, I have a bit of a video to show you, because I can stand up here and talk about New Zealand all day, But actually, the best way to show you about New Zealand is to show you a bit of imagery and a little a video that might explain it a little bit better and give you a little insight into what it looks, feels, and sounds like in New Zealand.
So I have a job for you. While we're watching this video, I want you to think about a couple of things, and we're going to ask you at the end of the video. So the first thing I'd like you to think about is what is similar in this video between Montana and New Zealand. So it might be things, it might be people, it might be places, the topography, and then what surprises you about New Zealand. Okay, so think about this. You can keep a list going in your mind, and at the end of the video, I'm going to ask everybody to think about that and share their answers with me. Whoop. So, oh, here we go. I have to hop over here. This one.
Welcome
Can
to
everybody
the
hear that
country
okay?
of open spaces. Where nature bursts and flows. Where the elements come alive. Where there is room to breathe. Welcome to the country of open hearts. Where care for the land and people is genuine. Where life is for living.
Lots of bungee jumping, right?
Where time spent together is never time wasted. Where lasting partnerships are formed. Where strangers are treated as friends. And memories are treasured forever. Welcome to the country of open minds. Where learning is embraced and opinions valued. Where freshness is championed and quality prized for the world to enjoy. Where nature inspires. Where engineering drives innovation and productivity. Where big ideas are born every day and new technologies are perfected. Where the impossible becomes real. And where every sunrise inspires the extraordinary. Welcome to the country of open spaces, open hearts, and open minds. Together, we
Awesome. All right, you guys. So what was interesting? What did you see that was similar between Montana and New Zealand?
The fishing and the bike, and then the views.
The views.
Yeah.
Okay, the views, the fishing. Yep. Anything else?
Mountains. The hiking, humans.
Mountain.
Humans, hiking, mountains. Absolutely. I saw some agriculture, some farming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the sheep. Did you catch the sheep?
Yeah.
They had really big horns. That particular sheep.
That was one of some of the breeds.
Wow.
Pretty special.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, was there anything that surprised you?
The technology.
So yeah, the technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Where do you, when you think about like where technology comes from, where do you usually think about technology?
Science.
China.
Japan. Europe.
Depends. How about oh, Kathleen, come on over.
Hobbits.
Oh, Kathleen thought of hobbits. Do you know
technology.
Do you know why Kathleen thought of hobbits? Has anybody read or seen The Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Hobbit. Do you know where that movie was filmed?
No.
Global Baggins.
It was filmed in New
It was
Zealand.
filmed in New Zealand.
Absolutely, yes.
And you probably saw I made my own guest appearance in the video earlier. That was pretty cool. I'm famous now. Yeah, I remember when I was at high school, on the bus on the way home, we used to drive past one of the movie sets for The Lord of the Rings, and you'd see them filming right into the night. So that was pretty exciting. That in my own hometown, which is actually here, a town called Upper Hutt, there are a couple of the river scenes as well. So that's really exciting. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that wee video about New Zealand. As you said, it looks a lot like Montana in many ways. When I was in Glacier National Park, it felt a lot like some of those mountain views and lake views that you saw in the video. But also, we do have a lot of things in common in terms of how we like our love of the great outdoors, the kinds of recreation we enjoy, fishing, hunting, getting out hiking. So that's something that we really share in common as cities and as countries. Now, I want to teach you guys a greeting from New Zealand. And this greeting is in the indigenous language of New Zealand, Te Reo Māori, which is the Māori language. Has anybody heard of Māori?
No.
So yeah, I'm going to teach you a first greeting. This is very special. So can you all say kia ora?
Kia ora.
Kia ora. And, kia ora is a way that we greet each other in New Zealand. It's how generally I'll answer the phone. And it literally translated, kia ora means to be well. So it's to wish someone good health, good ora, and it's a very common greeting in New Zealand. And increasingly in the way we talk to each other, we use a lot of Māori words in our everyday because it is one of the official languages of New Zealand. There are 3 official languages in New Zealand. English, Te Reo Māori, which is the original indigenous language, and also sign language is an official language of New Zealand. So I'm just going to show you a short clip now called Kia ora from Palmerston North.
All righty. Whoop. Here it comes.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora from Palmerston North. Kia ora from Palmerston North.
Kia ora from Palmerston North.
Kia ora from Palmerston North.
Kia ora. Kia ora from Palmerston North.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora from Palmerston North.
Kia ora from Palmerston North. Kia ora from Palmerston North.
Kia ora from Palmerston North. Kia ora from Palmerston North. Kia ora. Kia ora from Palmerston North.
Kia ora. Kia ora from Palmerston North.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
From Palmerston North.
Wow, I didn't know you had palm trees.
Yeah, we do.
That's really cool. Let's see. Guys, any palm trees in Montana?
No.
I think not.
That's one thing maybe we don't have in common is the palm trees. But yeah, the other thing we do have in common that I mentioned earlier is that Missoula, Montana and Palmerston, North New Zealand have been sister cities for 37 years, since 1982. And the way that relationship started was between the University of Montana and Massey University in New Zealand. In fact, it was the geography departments back in the early 1980s. Where they had come together to do some research, and somebody did their PhD in Massey from Missoula, from University of Montana, and said, hey, these cities have got a lot of things in common. We're both cities with rivers that run through the middle. We're around about the same size. And as you saw in the videos, how the place looks and how we enjoy our lives and our recreation is so very similar. So the cities decided to get together and start what's called a sister city relationship. Now, sister cities came about in the post-war years because after World War II, the world was still very divided, and there had been catastrophic tragedy all around the world as a result of the war. And one of the ways that the world tried to come together after the war was to connect cities together and communities together and really promote people-to-people exchange on the basis that if people form friendship across cities and communities and countries, that would really help to promote goodwill and understanding that would prevent wars like this from ever happening again. So President Dwight Eisenhower in the US was a big champion of the Sister City movement, and he hosted a White House conference on citizen people-to-people diplomacy, in which he kind of championed and really launched off the Sister City program in the US. And so our relationship with Missoula started in the 80s, and I'm actually here for a whole 2 months in Missoula to help promote connections between our cities. So who here has been to Missoula in Montana?
Oh, a few have.
Yeah, awesome.
Good. I would like to, I've got a wonder,
Yeah.
and I think this would be kind of interesting to pause for a second. Mr. Moore, you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I found you on the map. You guys are on just next to the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, is that correct?
We're actually on the Crow Reservation.
Oh, on the Crow Reservation, okay. How many of the students are tribal members? So pretty much everybody, okay. So when Toni talks about the indigenous people in New Zealand, that would be the original people that lived in New Zealand, right?
Yes.
So that would be similar to the Native American population here in the U.S. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Great, great. So a lot of the things that are happening in New Zealand, like you said, some of the languages and all of that kind of stuff. How many of you have tribal language taught? Do you do that in your school?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yes. So Toni taught you greeting in the Aboriginal language, or the language of New Zealand, right?
Te Reo Māori.
I'm wondering if one of you brave souls could teach her a greeting in Northern Cheyenne or Crow.
Yes, please.
Go
Who's
ahead.
got it? Let's hear it.
Oh.
Really, really loud.
Hey, are you-
Everybody else be quiet. One person. Go. Ooh.
Oh gosh.
I didn't catch that.
One more time.
Dishoraja.
Do you show that, Jeff? Try it.
Shortaja.
Is that close?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, shortaja.
What does that mean? Does it mean, how are you? Okay. Very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool.
I actually have a wonder.
Okay. Allie has a wonder.
If I were to say kia ora to you, what would you respond back? I wonder if we could
In Crow.
in Crow.
Belong.
Say it again.
Belong.
Go. Okay.
Wow. I'm hoping that means that you're doing awesome. Does that mean you're doing awesome?
Yeah. So I'm wondering, students, Toni talked about the power of sister cities to get people understanding each other, right? I want you to turn and talk to your neighbor for 10, 12 seconds. And I want you to come up with, if you could transport yourselves to New Zealand right now, what questions would you want to ask about how the people there live? Turn and talk to your neighbor, 12 seconds, and let's get some ideas going. Okay, back to us in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And by the way, I have to compliment you. You're doing a really good job of being respectful listeners. Good job. Could I have a hand raised from one of the pairs, and one person from that pair tell us, if you could like jump on a plane and fly to New Zealand right now, what questions would you have about living there? Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Go ahead, Brody.
I forgot.
R2?
I'll go fishing.
No, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, you'd go fishing. That's
You would go fishing? Yeah.
What kinds
I'll
of
come
things?
with you.
What kinds of things do you fish for there?
Trout.
Trout.
Wait, do you
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
trout over there?
Hey, let her talk now.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. Trout is one. So it depends where you go fishing. So one of the things you probably noticed about New Zealand is that we're surrounded by a lot of blue. So that's something that's a bit different from Montana, is we're surrounded by the ocean. So if people want to go deep sea fishing, people can go on a boat and go out and catch water out in the ocean. But also, much like Montana, we have a lot of lakes and rivers. So people do go fishing for trout and other kind of freshwater fish as well. Fly fishing, all that kind of thing.
Great. Let's have another question.
What kind of sports are over there?
What kind of sports? It's a great question. Well, one of the most popular sports you would have seen in that video clip that was played, and the World Cup is just being held in has just been held in Japan. Can anyone guess what that sport is? Rugby. That's right. So rugby is one of the most popular sports in New Zealand, and it's our national sport. And the All Blacks is the name of our rugby team that's world famous. Unfortunately, we just missed out on the Rugby World Cup trophy itself. We came third.
Oh,
Yeah, I know, it still hurts. But it is one of the most popular sports. It's a bit like football. The ball kind of looks the same. Has anybody seen a rugby game being played?
Or played it.
Or played it yourselves?
Yes, I've seen it.
You've seen it? Yeah. It's kind of like American football, but there isn't a lot of the same kind of helmets and protective gear, and it's a little bit more kind of fast-paced. But it's a great game. And other sports as well that are popular are netball. But as New Zealand becomes more diverse and we get a lot of different cultures, a range of different sports are becoming popular, like badminton and hockey and various other sports.
Great. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Brody, what's your question? Are there small neighborhoods over there?
Oh, interesting.
There are small neighborhoods, and much like the rest of the world, while there are some big cities, most of the cities in New Zealand are actually small communities. So Palmerston North is the 7th largest city, but even just within the city are smaller neighborhoods. The neighborhood I'm living in is called Hokowhitu, yeah, they're all over the country. You find small communities.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are there reservations?
No, that is a good question, because while we do have an Indigenous population in New Zealand, the Māori people, that there are iwi and tribes and hapu, which are like sub-tribes, but there aren't special designated reservation lands. The land that everybody lives on in New Zealand belongs through our Treaty of Waitangi to everyone in New Zealand. But the tribal regions, so all around New Zealand, these are just the geographic kind of regional council breakups. But if you saw another map, it would show you where all the different iwi lines are. And the iwi that is part of our region is called Rangitane o Manawatu. And last year when I came to Missoula, the chief of Rangitane iwi, the kaumātua Wiremu Te Awi, and his wife Trieste Te Awi came on the delegation visit to Missoula and are keen to work on partnerships over here. So it's a little bit different, and we're not kind of separated geographically, but there are special places and sacred lands to Māori. And with the treaty settlements over time, iwi and hapu are being granted more treaty settlement money from the Crown, because the head of state in New Zealand is actually the Queen of England.
Wow. How many knew that? The head of state, instead of having a president, is the Queen of England.
It's a bit like Canada. Yeah. But we do have, because we're part of the British Commonwealth. But through the Treaty of Waitangi, there's a partnership formed between Māori and the Crown. And much like in America as well, it's been, controversial because there was a lot of injustice around that treaty, a lot of land taken that shouldn't have been. And so now we're going through a period of restoration and treaty settlements and, a journey as a culture to really revitalize Māori language, Māori culture, and work as a true partnership as a country and as a people together.
Wow. Well, so you were just talking a little bit about culture. Is there anything that you would like Toni to take back about your culture, to say, hey, when I was in Montana, I met this awesome group of kids, and this is the message that they wanted me to bring home?
Maybe they should turn and talk again.
I think they might.
Yeah, let's get some ideas from you, because you are going to be the next citizens of the world, you guys. And you are going to be connecting with people all over the world. So I want you to turn and talk right now. And I want you to give one or two ideas of what you'd like New Zealand people, particularly kids your age, to know about where you live. Turn and talk.
It's gonna just happen.
Yeah. Well, let's ask him too. Yeah. Okay, let's come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, Mr. Moore, I want to do a time check with you. How long do you have in this class period?
Well, we got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, can you guys hang in there about 10 more minutes? Okay, I need 3 amazing ideas from 3 different people.
All right, we're gonna choose a girl now. Izzy.
We could go hunting at all seasons without anyone getting mad at us.
Oh, say it one more time, really loud.
Speak up, Izzy. You're fine. We're on the court.
We could go hunting any time of the season.
Oh, they can hunt anytime they want, anytime you want to. Is that what you just said?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, in your culture, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And Izzy, what do you like to hunt?
Deer. Awesome. Yeah.
I have
Cool.
been loving all the deer over here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. One more awesome idea. We've got 2 more ideas to go. Who's got another one?
Eddie, I know you have one.
What?
Yeah, you got it. I know you have one. Speak up. What do you want them to know about you and your culture?
Yes, go.
We all have our own plan.
They have their own land. Awesome. Good thinking.
Hey, they
Who's got
said can.
We all have our own plan.
clan? Okay.
Clan.
Okay.
Nice.
One more awesome idea.
All right. Say JC.
Come on, girls.
Charles, go ahead.
Our dances?
Oh,
Dances.
dances. Amazing.
And we were actually lucky enough last year to have members of the Missoula delegation who were able to do Native American dance as part of our Festival of Cultures. And that was really special for the people of Palmerston North because we hadn't had that as part of our Festival of Cultures before. So I know people will be back home will be really pleased to hear and learn more about your cultures here in Montana and in your tribes. And I think as well, something else that I think would be a really cool idea is to try and connect classrooms together like this through Skype. And so I'm having some talks with the ladies here at Inspired Classroom about how can we get school classrooms connected, like you guys in one of our school classrooms back home, so you can talk to each other about what it's like at your school, what it's like in your community, and also what are some of the big problems that we're trying to solve in our communities and how can we inspire each other to address that together. And I love the Inspired Classroom slogan, which I think is think global,
Connect globally, learn locally.
Learn locally.
I got a question for you guys. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up if you would like to connect with a class about your same age in New Zealand. How fun would that be?
Oh, yep. Lots of thumbs up.
I think we got to make that happen, Mr. Moore. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to do song, dance, language.
Oh, yes.
And I'm here for 2 weeks working with the City Council here in Missoula about ways that our cities can work together in our communities around things like sustainability, how we're using our water, how we're managing issues like plastic waste. So for me, I think the UN Sustainable Development Goals, has anybody heard of those?
Do you work on those, Mr. Moore, the SDGs from the United Nations?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing we're thinking of developing is some experiences around those because I know, like, do you guys have water issues on the Crow Reservation?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and that's a worldwide issue. So even just that would be cool is just to do some exchange about water issues. Yeah.
And so that way we can learn about each other's cultures, but also look at a common issue, whether it's, around water or sustainability and the environment, and maybe some ideas that we can share about what you guys are doing to tackle that problem and what we're doing back home in New Zealand to tackle that problem, what we can do as individuals to help solve these problems, but also how we can work together with our communities to make the big changes that are needed for a brighter future. Yeah.
What's the time
Well, the time difference?
between
The time difference.
New Zealand?
Yeah, well, actually, it's quite fortunate. The time difference with New Zealand, when it's the afternoon in Montana, it's the morning in New Zealand. So any kind of video Skype or digital connection you have like this from around about 12 p.m. to about 3 p.m. whenever the classroom day goes to, that corresponds to about 9, 10, 11
Okay.
in New Zealand in the morning. So there is a good 3-4 hour overlap between the school days, which makes me quite hopeful that this could work.
It's the next day though, right?
It is the next day though, so that's the buzzy thing. So when you're talking to someone from New Zealand, I mean obviously not me right now because I'm in Montana, but if you were Skyping a classroom, they would literally be in the future. Yeah, it'd be Wednesday here and you'd be talking to New Zealand and it'll be Thursday there. So that's kind of cool because New Zealand is 20 hours ahead of Montana.
Wow.
Which is buzzy. And the cool thing about that, if you ever fly from New Zealand to America, you travel back in time. Often you arrive in the United States before you left New Zealand.
Oh, I love.
If that makes sense. I had my birthday twice once. Because I flew on my birthday. I got to have a birthday party at home, and then I got on the plane, and I had my birthday party all over again in the States. So, yeah. Pro tip if you ever want to have your birthday twice.
So you're twice as old.
Well, yeah, luckily it didn't work like that.
Oh my goodness. So just as we're wrapping up, I just heard a fun word that you guys could maybe use as well, which is just a fun word that you use probably in New Zealand to explain maybe crazy was buzzy.
Buzzy.
I love that. Have you ever told somebody, "Oh, that's buzzy"? No, me either. But I think I might try now that I've been listening.
I did a day, my daughter is going to daycare here in Missoula, and so we went along with a list of words that we say in New Zealand, but they don't say here.
Oh, how fun.
So we taught them some words like kia ora, and we also, I remember I confused a taxi driver once because I said to him, "Can you open the boot?" And he looked at me really strange and said, "What are you talking about?" In New Zealand, we call the trunk of a car the boot.
That's a good one.
And we call the the sidewalk, we call the footpath. Trash is rubbish.
Yep.
So you can try some of these out on your family tonight.
Yes.
Say, Mom, that dinner was really buzzy.
Yeah. So we all speak English, but sometimes we speak it a little different.
Yeah.
So yeah, even
That's
the English
fun.
isn't the same.
That's really fun. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And Toni, thank you so much for coming. And I learned a ton about New Zealand. And I look forward to connecting with your class again and also students in New Zealand.
That'd be so cool. Lovely to meet you.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Go ahead. Question.
Do y'all have a student exchange program? Like if somebody wanted to go from here down there?
Or t-shirt?
Yes, teacher.
Yeah, a lot of our schools in New Zealand do get a lot of international students. So many of our, not just high schools, but even some of our middle and elementary schools have international exchange programs. And so that's something we can help facilitate is some conversations with school boards and things about the opportunity for people to be able to do a physical exchange. But I think, to start with, getting these digital connections in this day and age, it's easily done. And it's a great way for people to learn and maybe start talking about some avenues for further learning and exchange, which is whether that's digital exchange or physically getting on a plane and coming to New Zealand.
I like the physical part.
Class trip, yeah?
Especially about the middle of January because it's summer and
That's the other thing. In 2 weeks, I'm going home to summer.
Oh, my
Because
goodness.
the seasons are opposite as well.
Uh-huh. That is cool.
And so you know what that means at Christmas time in New Zealand?
Summer.
What was that?
Do you know what that means for Christmas time in New Zealand?
Well,
Yeah, you get to wear shorts.
Christmas on the beach. With a barbecue and shorts and a sun hat.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. That is buzzy.
That's buzzy. That's buzzy. Oh my
Well,
goodness.
so nice to talk to you guys,
Yes.
and hopefully I'll see you again if we can get some classroom connections going with a school in Palmerston North.
Sounds wonderful.
All right. Goodbye, you guys. Thank you so much.